Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Stoke-on-Trent. Before we get started this morning, just want to make you aware of fire regulations. There is a fire escape out of that room. You'll have to exit through one of these two doors, either here or at the back. The fire escape is at the back of this room if you need it. Could I ask you please to make sure your phones are turned off or at the very least on silent. Today we start a great opportunity for our party. Just over a week ago, Tristram Hunt announced that he was resigning to work in the city where he lives and run a museum in London. He felt that he had a better future away from Jeremy Corbyn and his brand of politics. The last UKIP campaign that we fought here in Stoke-on-Trent, 70% of voters supported UKIP and its policy to leave the European Union. This is a UKIP constituency, and during these 5 weeks we are going to go out there and we are going to prove that to be the case.
Absolutely. Yeah.
At the end of November, we announced the leader of our party with the biggest mandate that UKIP had ever given to a leader. He was stood on a platform of unity. After a difficult few months, he wanted to bring our party back together. Just 2 months on, we are a party reborn. Today is proof of that. A by-election called only in the last few days. We have people here from Kent, from London, from Essex and Wales, the Midlands, Newcastle, Manchester. And we have people from the great city of Stoke-on-Trent here to help launch our campaign. All we need now is our candidate. Last night in the constituency, we held a hustings for local members to identify their preferred candidate. Originally, there were 11 applications received. Upon learning of the final 11 candidates, 10 of those candidates, including the former parliamentary candidate Mick Harold, made the decision to withdraw from the race. That was so that the 11th candidate can be announced today, unopposed, ratified this morning by our National Executive Committee as the man who will lead UKIP into this by-election, the man that will take a seat, that important second seat for our party in Westminster. Ladies and gentlemen, our candidate for the Stoke by-election and our leader, Paul Nuttall.
Thank you very much, and what a wonderful turnout we have here today in Stoke-on-Trent. I'd like to start by thanking Branch for selecting me as their candidate for this up-and-coming by-election. I'd also like to thank the Branch chairman, Mick Harold, in particular, for offering me his unwavering support. And finally, I'd like to thank the UKIP National Executive Committee for ratifying my candidacy this morning. I'm not from Stoke, although I did live in Shelton for a short period in the late 1990s. However, I feel right at home here, not just because of many previous visits to speak at public meetings here for the UKIP branch, but because of so many other things too. From the terrace streets to the corner shops, from the local pubs to the children's playgrounds, from the old factory sites to the graffiti on too many walls. Like the community I was raised in Bootle, the community of Stoke-on-Trent is this day battling against the odds. I know how much more difficult it is for a young person in a working class community in the Midlands of the North to fulfil their potential in life. It's a bit more difficult than if one is lucky enough to be born into a world of connections with money down south. If I am fortunate enough to be elected as the MP for Stoke-on-Trent Central, I will promise that I will fight for you and for your children. I will fight for a top quality academic education for those who can benefit from that route. and for high-class vocational education too. I will fight to have the bedroom tax scrapped. I will fight for jobs that pay a decent wage, enough to give back to working people what they once enjoyed as standard: a house, a car and a holiday too. I will fight to see people with long-standing local connections prioritised on housing lists and forces veterans put to the front of the queue. Yeah. I will champion the issues that matter to the people of Stoke-on-Trent. In the House of Commons, I will make the argument for proper immigration controls, for stronger sentences for criminals, and for rebuilding our magnificent armed forces too. I will raise the issues that the establishment parties would prefer to brush under the carpet, from tackling the spread of radical Islam and Sharia to having pride in England, and that includes us having our own parliament. I am sick and tired of Englishness being the one national identity in our island that is not allowed to speak its name. And let me tell you, I am English and I am proud of it. And unlike Labour, I am also proud of our flag. Now let me deal with the issue of the National Health Service head on. The voters of Stoke will be told in this election that UKIP wants to privatise the NHS. This is a lie. It goes back to comments that I made back in early 2011 when I spoke about introducing more competition into the NHS. However, it is clear from the Labour Party's disastrous PFI programme that has saddled the NHS with a debt of 80 billion that I was wrong. We also will not take lessons from a party which privatised 5% of the NHS when it was in power and oversaw the mid-staffs scandal. Yeah. Let me be clear, UKIP has never stood on a platform of privatising the NHS in any election, and UKIP never will stand on a platform of privatising the NHS. UKIP made it clear, perfectly clear, in its manifesto of 2015 that the NHS must remain public and free at the point of delivery. However, it must also be a national health service and not an international health service. Absolutely. We are also committed to the abolition of hospital car parking charges, which in our opinion is little more than a tax on the sick. And unlike the other parties, we will put even more money into the NHS, and we can tell you where that money is coming from. Because we will slash the bloated foreign aid budget, which is costing the British people £30 million every single day. £30 million every single day, and we will reinvest that money into our NHS. In the referendum last year, just about 70% of voters from Stoke voted to leave the European Union. This was the highest vote share for leave in any city in the United Kingdom. That makes Stoke the capital of Brexit. And be clear, nobody will fight harder than me to ensure that Brexit happens in full and in good time. If I am elected as your MP, it will send a signal to all those who are trying to put spanners in the works that their jobs are on the line. And in particular, those Labour MPs who represent working class communities which voted leave and now want to water down Brexit. They will be put on notice that if they seek to frustrate the will of the people, they may as well be asking for their P45s in the post. By voting for a UKIP MP, the people of the Potteries can drive Brexit forward and help to give Britain back the power to tackle the problems facing communities like this one. We can together change politics and set a new course, a course that will restore pride in our nation and open up opportunities to people in every part of our country. The metropolitan elite has had the fate of working people in its grip for too long. It's now time that that grip was broken. I've heard people say that these communities have been left behind. This is no doubt true, but it is a phrase that I do not like. I prefer to say that these communities have been let down, and let down time and time again. Let down by a haughty political establishment that looks down its nose at working class people. Let down by a Labour Party in particular that takes their votes for granted. It cannot be right. It cannot be right that 25% of shops in this area are either empty or boarded up. It cannot be right that the local hospitals seem in constant crisis. And it cannot be right that an estimated 60,000 people are living on the breadline in this area. This must change, but it will not change by simply electing another Labour MP to act as what the Westminster journalists call lobby fodder on the back benches. It will only change if Stoke is given a truly national voice. And I believe that voice is UKIP. This by-election can herald a new age of British politics, an age when people kick back and revolt against their political overlords, an age which is a clear break with the past. It is already happening with Brexit. It has already happened in the United States and in Italy recently. I believe it can happen here in Stoke on February the 23rd. We have a lot to do in the next 5 weeks, so let's get out there. Let's get cracking. Stoke is already the capital of Brexit. Let us make Stoke the capital city of change. Thank you.
I don't know if this mic's working, but thanks a lot to the ladies and gentlemen for the media for coming along. I think you probably get the sense in the room that you could well be in at the start of a very big story. We're on a very tight schedule, but we do have time for a few questions. If you could give your name and your organisation before asking the question. The lady over there.
Thank you. Adele Robinson, Sky News. Mr Nuttall, you said it yourself, you described Stoke as the capital of Brexit. Now Brexit is going to be happening and the Conservative Party are forging ahead with it. What actually can UKIP be offering that's new on the doorstep?
Well, firstly, I gave Theresa May's speech, I think it was 7 out of 10 on Sky News. Look, she's talking about a transitional system. She's talking about a fading in or a fading out, shall we say, which will begin in May 2019. What we want is we want clean Brexit, and we want Brexit now. We want the kind of Brexit that people voted for. Indeed, Mrs May failed to mention anything about immigration in her speech. We would like to see immediate controls on Brexit, because if we go down the line of Mrs May, then almost 1 million people on current trends will come to this country by the time Brexit is achieved. And look, there are many people in constituencies like Stoke-on-Trent who will never, ever vote Conservative. We are their opportunity to make that change. This constituency has had a Labour MP since its inception in 1950. Simply voting for another Labour MP is not an option for change. It will be the same old, same old. We're offering something new. We're not only offering a clean Brexit and ensuring that the people get what they voted for on June the 23rd, we're offering new and radical problems to solve the problems which exist within this community. You know, we can start a revolution here in Stoke on February the 23rd, and if we win, we will then go on and win other seats. The anti-establishment kickback can start, and it can start here in Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah.
Thank you, the gentleman holding the mic in the corner there.
Yeah, Paul Nuttall, Paul Brand from ITV News. You've talked a lot about what happens if UKIP win here, but what if UKIP don't win here? Does that suggest you have peaked, that UKIP peaked during the referendum?
We will fight hard to ensure that that doesn't happen. We will fight hard to ensure that UKIP does succeed in this seat. And since I've taken over, Paul, as the leader of UKIP, we're now a united party again. We're up in the opinion polls. Membership is going up for the first time in over a year. We've already finished second in one by-election. It's now time for UKIP to stop being the bridesmaid at by-elections and become the bride and go on and win. And I'm confident that we can do it here.
You're going to get jilted at the altar then?
We're not going to get jilted at the altar. It's usually the bride that jilts at the altar. We'll be there.
I think we've got time for just one more question. Lady at the front.
Hello, Emma Thomas, BBC.
Hi.
This will, if you win, give you your second MP
Yeah.
in Westminster. For many people who are Labour voters in Stoke, they see the Conservatives as the enemy to things that you talk about, like the NHS. Why should they dilute Labour's substance in Westminster by having another UKIP MP?
Well, firstly, if I'm elected, I'm a National Party leader. I'll give Stoke a national voice. If it elects another Labour MP, there'll be lobby fodder. There'll be a voice in the wilderness on the backbenches. And do you really think that people in these communities here have anything in common with a Labour Party which is led by a man who doesn't sing the national anthem, which has a shadow chancellor who says nice things about the IRA, which has a shadow Home Secretary who thinks that people who voted Brexit are racist and doesn't want to see any immigration controls, that has a shadow Foreign Secretary that sneers at the flag of St George? They have nothing in common with this North London middle-class Islington set. And we are now going to take these people on as the new patriotic voice of working people. And we will go in to Stoke-on-Trent Central, and we will knock on doors, we will talk to people, we'll hold street stalls, and people will learn what UKIP's about. There's only a 5,000 majority, and I am convinced in this next 5 weeks we can overturn that and have an MP elected here on February the 23rd.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.